on the 25th of December called Christmas. What is it really about? Can Muslims and Christians and others partake in it or not? So the first thing, before we get into opinions and things, let's look at some historic facts. Where did the 25th of December come from? Was this a day that biblically Jesus was born? That is not the case. That is not the case. If we go back, for example, National Geographic has a book, An Uncommon History of Common Things. And if you look at any of the research that we have seen, whether it's on the internet or in books about Christmas, they write that Christmas was not a part of the Christian faith. In fact, for 4 centuries after Isa alayhi salam's ascension, for 4 centuries after Jesus, there was no such concept in Christianity. It's non-Muslim research that for 4 centuries after Jesus, there was no idea of the 25th of December being tied to Jesus. So in fact, if we look in the Bible, in the New Testament, in the Old Testament, if you look at historic documentation, it's proven that the 25th of December has absolutely nothing to do with the birth of Jesus. Nothing. Not a shred of evidence that shows that Jesus was born on the 25th of December. In fact, it was not until Pope Julius I, he chose the date. And why? To appease the pagans for a festival that had for Saturnalia, which was to celebrate Saturn, the sun god. This was a festival, Saturnalia, that they had in pagan Rome from before Christianity even reached Rome. And what would they do on this festival? They would give gifts. Seem familiar? They would go and decorate a fern or a evergreen comfort tree with red berries. Seem familiar? And they would party, and they would loosen the laws of decency to do very indecent things in those days. And the pagans were not willing to give up this holiday. So Pope Julius I, 400 years after Jesus, he came up with the idea to take this pagan holiday and bring it into the Christian religion. And the early Christians, they fought this. They stood up against this. Oliver Cromwell in the British Parliament, in 1659, he had it banned. And the purists who came to America, the settlers who came to this country from Europe, they did not celebrate it because they also believed this was a pagan festival. In fact, it was banned. It was illegal in the United States. When the pilgrims came here, the purists who wanted to follow the Christian religion properly, they banned Christmas. You can Google and see pictures of those scans that you can find of old postings that used to be posted saying that this is not allowed in this country, and at that time what was going to be America, because it's a pagan festival. If we look at today, many Christians who are researchers, who are people who want to follow their religion, they've also spoken out against this pagan festival. If we look at Santa Claus, who's now called Santa, and if you switch a few letters, it'll be Satan. If you look at Santa Claus, there was no such tradition tied to Christmas. Saint Nicholas had nothing to do with Christmas. They just took a man and they took a Nordic pagan legend about a man who would come in green until Coca-Cola made him red. And they made this tradition from nowhere, from pagan festivals. So how can true Christians or Jews or Muslims celebrate a pagan festival that has absolutely nothing to do with Jesus? He's not the reason for the season. This is all marketing. In fact, if we look at it from an Islamic perspective, if we look at the book Al-Iqtada Sirat Al-Mustaqim from Shaykh al-Islam Taqiyuddin Ibn Taymiyyah, he mentions a quote that Imam Al-Bayhaqi in Sunan Al-Kubra or Sunan Al-Kabir, he mentioned the Sahih Sanad, authentic, from Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu. فقال عمر قال لا يدخلوا على المشركين في كنائسهم يوم العيدهم فإن سخط الله تنزل عليهم. What does Umar radiyallahu anh says? Do not enter the kana'is, the churches of the mushrikeen on the days of their Eid, because the punishment of Allah, the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is descending upon them. And today our Ai.M.A. want to hold interfaith events in churches on Christmas and want to put Facebook page updates on Happy Hanukkah and Happy Christmas and Happy Easter and Merry this and Merry that. But what do we find from Abdullah ibn Umar, who says whoever lives in the land of kuffar and celebrates their celebrations, then if they die, they will be raised on the day of judgment with them. This is Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As radiyallahu anhuma. And Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu says, stay away from the Ada of Allah, the enemies of Allah, al-Yahud wal-Nasara, on their Eid. Stay away from them. This is from Umar radiyallahu anhu. Ali ibn Abi Talib radiyallahu anhu and others, they also, as mentioned by Imam al-Bayhaqi, they forbid to greet or celebrate or to congratulate, as Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyah and others mention, the days of the festivals of kuffar. Now some people say, oh, but there's a difference of opinion. Tayyib, I gave you the opinion of Umar, of Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As, of Ali ibn Abi Talib, and of these Sahaba, and of Shaykh al-Islam, Taqiyuddin ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn al-Qayyim. Whose opinion is going to contradict them? Find me a single Sahabi, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Did he celebrate them? Did he congratulate them? There were Yahud and Nasara there. Did he participate in them? No. A single Sahabi. No, we only have mana, forbidden. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to the opposite of them. And then we have from Sahaba clear indications. And from the amazing scholars of Islam. And today somebody has different opinion. Whose opinion? Some guy who's never studied Sharia a day in his life, sitting on his Twitter account. Don't care about your opinion. Bring us from the Kitab of Allah. Bring us from the Sahih Hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Bring us from the Aqwal of Sahaba or the great Ai.M.A. of Islam, Abu Hanifa, or Shafi'i, Malik, Ahmad, Ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn al-Qayyim, Ibn Rajab. Some of those Ai.M.A. you have nothing. So there is no difference of opinion. It is not permissible for Muslims to participate in them, in these kind of celebration, or greet people on them. This is something known by consensus of this ummah. Jazakumullahu khairan.
السلام عليكم. لا تنسوا الاعجاب بالفيديو والاشتراك في القناة تشجيعا لنا لنستمر بنشر المزيد إن شاء الله.